The Law and You, a look at laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines which affect our daily lives. The Law and You, presented by lawyer panel P.R Campbell QC and brought to you on SVG-TV as a public service.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, boys and girls, greetings. Welcome to another presentation in this public service nation building series, The Law and You. This is program number 976, coming to you on Monday the 22nd of June 2020. On this program, I will speak to you on the topic, the sanctity of elections. But before getting into the topic, a few preliminary comments. Firstly, and as usual, I would like to send out my condolences to all families which have suffered recent bereavements. Secondly, I would like to invite you, those of you who are so inclined and who have access to the YouTube facility on your television sets, I invite you to look at a panel discussion which was held yesterday afternoon, Father's Day, and belated Happy Father's Day to all the fathers of the nation and those who are viewing this program. Yesterday afternoon, my daughter, Dr. P.R Campbell Chambers, stationed in Jamaica, a dermatologist, and she has taken to hosting panel discussions on various nation-building topics. She hosted a panel yesterday afternoon consisting of Major David Clark of Barbados, Pastor Steve Akabali of Trinidad and Tobago, Professor Hopton Dunn of Africa and the Caribbean, and Mr. Jerry Winkler, formerly from Wisconsin but settled for nearly 30 years in Jamaica, and myself, discussing the topic, becoming better fathers in society. So that if you go to YouTube and you key in the words Dr. Arusha, you will see a series of programs that she has done in the past, including the one done yesterday, Becoming Better Fathers in Society. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but you will find it refreshing to hear the various experiences from these men, fathers, who hail from various parts of the globe. But perhaps my big Father's Day surprise came from my children through my daughter Alpha. They presented me with a recording on their smartphone of the two calypsos which I had recorded way back in 1974. Buy Your Own Cigarette, and on the flip side, Bandit. I hadn't heard Buy Your Own Cigarette for years. There was a time when NBC Radio 705 had a copy. I don't know if they still have it. But it's a calypso which many people seem to have liked. Those two calypsos, Buy Your Own Cigarette and Bandit, won me the crown in Barbados at Carnival 1973. In those days, Barbados had no national carnival festival. The only carnival you had in Barbados was on the Cave Hill campus, so that those who took part in the calypso competition over the years and were crowned as Calypso King of Cave Hill regarded themselves as the Calypso Kings of Barbados as well. So, many people don't know the Calypso Bandit. Everybody, who knew me at the time knew by own cigarette, but only a few people had ever heard of the Calypso Bandit. Well, if you do get the opportunity to listen to it, I would invite you to do that. But the reason I brought that up, not only to thank my children for the Father's Day surprise, but to illustrate something I've known about myself for a long time. Ever since I've been involved in political affairs, since 1969, I realized I had a knack for foreseeing developments long before they took place. And the Calypso Bandit was a calypso starring the Honorable Eric Gary, then Prime Minister of Grenada. And it was built on a phrase which Prime Minister Errol Barrow of Barbados had used with Gary in mind, but without calling his name. He had made a broadcast saying that many small island leaders are bandits masquerading as leaders. So I took the theme and wrote the Calypso Bandit. But this is how that Calypso started. Revolution, revolution in the Spice Island. It's a people's revolution in the Spice Island. Repeat. Revolution, revolution in the Spice Island. It's a people's revolution in the Spice Island. Now, the Grenada People's Revolution took place in the year 1979. (1979) was the actual People's Revolution in Grenada. That calypso was composed in 1973 and recorded in 1974, a good 5 years before the actual revolution took place. But I saw it coming from all the things that were happening in Grenada. I just knew there had to be a revolution in that country. And so 5 years after I penned that, I recorded the calypso, it occurred. Interesting. Okay, well, let me turn to the topic for the evening, the sanctity of elections. Today was supposed to be the day when the Guyana Court of Appeal was supposed to have made a pronouncement, issued a judgment on the outcome of the litigation in Guyana concerning their recent general elections. Unfortunately, I didn't get to listen to any of the midday newscasts, and it is now mid-afternoon. So I have no idea what the Court of Appeal decided. But what I can say is this. It was very disappointing to know that in the year 2020, we in the Caribbean still cannot get it right where elections are concerned. Not all of us, because St. Kitts had their election recently. And that is what my topic for the evening is centered on. The outcome of the elections in Guyana has been in doubt up to, well, I would say up to today, because the counting and the recounting that took place, the accusations and recriminations, became almost unbearable. Several prime ministers stepped into the fray. Some were criticized for what they said, but everybody was very impatient that after months of the people in Guyana casting their ballots, one could not still get a clear result of the general elections. Let us hope that what the Court of Appeal has decided, whichever way its decision has gone, will bring an end to the uncertainty and that Guyana would get back on the path to development. Excuse me. Now that brings me around to the meat of today's topic, the sanctity of elections. In our democratic system, the free and fair choice of a government is perhaps the most cherished ideal that the people have. Elections should be free, they should be fair, and they should be free from fear. That is, free from F-E-A-R, but the elections themselves should be fair, F-A-I-R. Free and fair and free from fear. Those countries which are prone to having governments which tamper with the election systems are normally chronically unstable. Because clearly, if you are a citizen in a country and a government is allegedly voted into office, you want to know that the government has got there legitimately through a fair process, reflecting the will of the majority of the people of the country, whatever the political system of governance may be. But if the people do not have confidence in the election system, do not have confidence in the machinery of the elections, do not have confidence in the officials who run the elections, then you will have a lot of people who are never satisfied that the government that has been thrown up by a flawed process is a legitimate government who has got into office by the free will of the people. And among other concepts, democracy is, among other things, a system of government where those who govern do so by the consent of those who are governed. In other words, the political leaders are leading the country with the consent of the people, the electorate, the voters. That is supposed to be one of the central tenets of the democratic system. And therefore it becomes very important that all governments must see to it that the election procedures are carried out with transparency, according to clearly defined laws, and on a level playing field. That is, both leading parties, or if there are more, all the leading parties should feel that they each have a shot at becoming elected. They each have a fair chance of being elected to form the government. Now, I listened to the proceedings in our parliament this morning. That is Monday, the 22nd of June. And among other things, congratulatory remarks were sent out by first the leader of the opposition to the returned Prime Minister of St. Kitts, Dr. Harris, and then by our own Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Ralphie Gonsalves. He gave his congratulatory remarks for Dr. Harris's re-election. Remember, Dr. Harris was elected in a coalition government some 5 years ago. They went back to the polls, and it appears that the majority of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis were satisfied that the government ought to be returned. So the Team Unity, as they are called, consisting of 3 political parties on the mainland of St. Kitts and 1 concerned citizens movement in Nevis, had formed the government. St. Kitts Nevis has 11 members of parliament elected. 8 are elected from mainland St. Kitts, and 3 are elected from Nevis. On the 4th of June 2020 elections, the Concerned Citizens Movement won all 3 of the seats in Nevis, and their other colleagues on the mainland of St. Vincent won a majority. So the coalition of the 4 political parties, 3 on mainland St. Kitts, 1 on Nevis, Team Unity, headed by Dr. Harris, won the elections. They won a total of 8 seats, 5 on the mainland and 3 in Nevis. Okay, so the Caribbean has congratulated Dr. Harris. Now, Dr. Harris was in the political wilderness for a number of years when Dr. Kennedy Simmons was the Prime Minister. You recall that Dr. Harris had succeeded in a motion of no confidence against the Kittitian government, and they would not convene Parliament for the motion to be brought on and put into effect. Caribbean Prime Ministers, including the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and Grenadines, had made some gestures of rebuke, but nothing as serious as what some other Prime Ministers, the leaders of the opposition, including our leader of the opposition at the time, the Honorable Adam Eustace, were very strongly in their rebuke of Dr. Simmons for manhandling the democratic system in such a way as to effectually prevent Dr. Harris from succeeding in bringing the government down. So Dr. Harris himself is no stranger to having been disadvantaged deliberately by his political foes. Unfortunately, because it is politics, leaders who suffer what Shakespeare called the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune when they are in opposition do not always behave differently when they become the government. And instead of operating in the way that they preached when they were in opposition, they turn around and start doing the same oppressive things. There was a case in the High Court of St. Kitts which illustrated the degree to which the good Dr. Harris, Honorable Prime Minister, would have gone to disadvantage his opponents, even though that is the same Dr. Harris who was disadvantaged himself. Because the judgment of Mr. Justice Ward, handed down on the 12th of June, and you can find it on the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court website. If you go on the just key in Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court on Google, and you will be led to their website, and you follow the cursor and go to judgment. And if you look for a judgment delivered on the 12th of June this year, it's a couple of weeks ago, in the case Timothy Abbott and Maxine Stanley versus the Supervisor of Elections and the Chief Registration Officer for a polling division, a polling district in St. Kitts. I find that this case left a bad taste in my mouth, because I was one of those who came on this program and spoke on behalf of Dr. Harris when he was being pressured unfairly by the Kennedy Simmons government. I never thought that within a few years the same Dr. Harris would be associated with what I call strong-armed tactics. Now, I'm not saying his coalition didn't win, Team Unity didn't win the elections, but I am questioning whether they won the elections fair and square. And this is why, reading this judgment, because you know what this judgment is about? This was a case brought by 184 voters in St. Kitts. 184 now. St. Kitts is a place with very small constituencies. 184 of them went to court. Well, not all 184 could get their names on the court papers. So they sued through Mr. Abbott and Ms. Stanley in a representative capacity, representing all of the others. Their complaint, these 184 voters had the same complaint, that they had voted in the election before, but somehow, and for some reason unknown to them, their names were taken off the voters list for the June 2020 elections. Now, in St. Vincent and Grenadines, you would say, well, very often when the final lists come out, people discover their names are not on the list. They go and they make representation to the electoral office, sort out the problem, and usually the problem is rectified. Therefore, you would have thought that in St. Kitts, once these persons discovered that their names were missing from the voters list, 184 of them, that they would go to the office of the supervisor of elections to lodge their complaints and to have it investigated as to why their names had been taken off the voters list. Now, this is what the judge said in his judgment. General elections in St. Christopher and Nevis were scheduled to be held on the 5th of June 2020 by notice of application dated 2nd June 2020. The applicants, in their personal capacities and as intended representatives of 184 persons, moved the court on an urgent basis seeking leave to apply for judicial review of the decision to remove their names from the register of voters for the electoral district of St. Christopher number 4 and so on. The judge said further on, in summary, 6 persons swore affidavits and gave evidence that they were registered in 2015, that when the list came out for the I said June 4th, but the elections were actually on June 5th. When the list came out, their names were not on the list. And they sought to find out what was going on, why their names had been taken off the list. Now, this is the part that really left a bad taste in my mouth. The judge said, the electoral office posted a sign notifying the public that its offices would be closed from Tuesday 2nd June, Monday the 1st being a public holiday, to Friday 5th June 2020. So Monday was a holiday. The electoral office, which we are accustomed to in St. Vincent, being opened even on election day. So you could go on election day and find out why your name is not on the list. The supervisor of elections in St. Kitts closed the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Friday was voting day. And therefore those persons had no opportunity to go to the office to sort out what had become of their names. And I feel that the St. Kitts government has a case to answer. Because which country closes the electoral office for 3 days, Monday being a holiday? Which country closes the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Office locked, and no voter can go and check their names on the list? I cannot, therefore, join in the congratulations for Dr. Harris. I am troubled by the fact that 184 persons in St. Kitts could not vote in their elections for reasons unknown to them. And there was no office open for them to go and check it out. The Tuesday, the Wednesday, the Thursday, or even on the Friday, the election day, and the office closed, locked up. To me, that is a violation of the sanctity of elections. I will some more on the topic on another occasion, Divi. So that is all from this program of The Law and You. I hope if you have relations in St. Kitts, you can find out what really went on there. But Something sounds very bad to me, so very fishy. Doesn't pass the smell test. Anyway, I hope I'll be of further service to you next week, Monday DV, for another presentation in this public service nation building series, The Law and You. Do have a pleasant week, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, boys and girls. Take care of yourself in this COVID season, and may the good Lord continue to bless us all.
The Law and You, a look at laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines which affect our daily lives. The Law and You, presented by lawyer panel P.R Campbell QC and brought to you on SVG-TV as a public service.